Hey guys, Andy here with SkyTap Paramotors. I want to introduce to you the new Spartan frame. Now this frame has several safety features and several other features that exist on no other paramotor in its class. One of them is 400-pound test Kevlar netting and a hoop strong enough to support that netting to keep the pilot from contacting the prop, whether it be ground starting on your back, or launching. Another thing that we have is quick release harness. The number one way that people die in this sport is by drowning. Flotation can fail, the quick release harness will not. This will release under pressure, and it will also release with no pressure, and it only takes one hand to do so. So it's very quick out and very quick to get back in. So, getting in, just stand on up. Boom, and you're in. Sits nice and high on your back, no pressure right here. And another great thing about this harness, guys, is right as soon as you take off and the paraglider is weighted on the carabiners, it scoops you in your seat. So there's no dropping the brakes and reaching down and trying to get yourself in this seat. This harness will scoop you right into your seat. And then getting out, you just reach over, grab the handle, boom, you're out. Then you hit your chest and you're out, guys. So now, we also sell, this is our custom race harness, okay? We designed this specifically for this frame right here. But we also have other options. You can get any harness, whether it's split leg, APCO, Dudex, up air, sole. Another thing that we offer, and no other frame on the market has this in any class, is we have ball bearings in our swing arms. These are stainless steel swing arms, and there's a bearing on each side of this. And what that does is you cannot over tighten this bolt, and you don't have to tighten this bolt in between flights. It will not back off. On other frames that don't have, which is every other frame, that doesn't have the bearings right here, is if you tighten it too much, then it won't go up and down freely. And if you don't tighten it enough, then it'll have like a jiggle on the side where it'll go clack, 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 back and forth. We've had guys that have had this frame for over a year, and they've never had to tighten down these bolts. If you look real close, when I move the swing arm up and down, it moves freely. The bolt doesn't move. Nothing moves in here. Also, we have these, I call them weight shift spacers. Now you can put these in any configuration. These swing arms are already offset to counter prop torque, which you can also, if you want even more anti-torque, you can put these spacers in a certain configuration and shift the weight over. I like both of them going wide. It's 20 inches between carabiner to carabiner. And what that does is give you extra weight shift. So you can actually roll your hips and shift the whole weight of the frame and use the whole frame instead of using just actuating the arms. The arms don't actually actuate as much as people think in flight. So I think this is the way to go. But like I said, we'll do it any way anybody wants us to. So another good thing about our frame is it's very, very easy to make adjustments for the pilot's weight. So if this is being used between different students that weigh different, or they're taller or shorter, and you need to adjust it here, it's very quickly. There's no tools required. There's no bolts. There's a lot less things that can fail. It has a backup strap just like everybody has, but it's not held together by bolts that are offset or kind of far out where it's putting lateral pressure on the bolts. And it's really easy to switch out. You just swap that down. Boom, then you go into your different, wherever you want it, come right back in, and boom, it's like, what, 15 seconds on one side, so, 30 seconds you can swap over, and there's no tools required, so that's super convenient. Another thing unique to this frame right here is our netting. The way we do our netting, 400-pound test Kevlar, it's on each cage piece has to support its own netting. It's a lot more expensive to do it this way. It takes a lot more time. There's a lot more cuts and bend and rolling of the metal, a lot more welding, all that stuff. It's a lot cheaper to do a hoop with spokes and then have netting coming into one string, but you can never get that netting tight enough to keep your hand out of the prop. Oh, this one right here, as you can see right here, that's about as close as I can get it to the netting right here. And most of that flex is in the prop and the motor mounts. It's not as much in the cage, and the netting almost flexes none at all. So, another thing is, look at our fuel tank. We've never actually had to replace somebody's fuel tank. Nobody's ever broken the mainframe, and nobody has ever put their prop into the fuel tank. So you can see right here, it's very, very, very far away from the fuel tank. That's as far as I can get it right there, with pulling and pushing. It's the #1 injury. I know that the rule is never ground start, never ever ground start. Start it on your back or start it on a rack. But I have multiple friends that have been injured either warming up their motor on their back or when they're forward launching and their hands actually push the cage or push the netting with their hands into the prop and then they get an injury. So having this netting will prevent a lot of injuries. It also makes you feel extremely safe to have this much protection between you and the prop. That's a big deal. So they say never ground start. Everybody ground starts. You know, everybody says don't start it on the ground, but they all do it. When you go to a flying, they don't even enforce that rule. There's so much of it going on. But it's one thing to put yourself in danger by ground starting, but it's another thing to put somebody else in danger when you're starting it on your back even. So you'll be at flying, you'll be flying with your buddy. Your buddy will blow a couple launches. He's starting to get tired, so you start setting up his wing. He's got his motor turned off. Then he's standing there ready to go, and they'll ask you to start it for him on the back. Now I have to say, that's the most dangerous thing I do in this sport, is when I start somebody else's frame that doesn't have this kind of netting on their back. Because, like, I have a friend that started his motor on his back, it knocked him right off his feet because it went to full throttle, pushed him up against the chair, pushed the chair into the garage, and then the motor going to full throttle actually pushed his head into the back, and different frame, pushed the cage back into the prop, and then the prop exploded. He got a bunch of carbon fiber in the back of his head. So when you go up to start somebody, just think about it like this. Your buddy comes over to start it up, you accidentally squeeze the throttle, or something comes loose in here, and the engine goes to full throttle and somebody's standing there, it's gonna knock you towards him, and he's got nothing to brace. He's got no protection. So it's not only putting yourself in danger by not having good netting, it's putting your friends in danger that is trying to help you out. So I think that's a big one. Not only to protect yourself, but to protect the people around you. Another thing we have, this is our trigger throttle. Now, a lot of people in the industry, they prefer the bicycle brake throttle. And if you want a bicycle brake throttle, we'll put that on there. But this right here is what comes standard. And I like these. I like these because I'm never gonna drop this throttle. I can hold it with these 3 fingers and my thumb, it's locked into place. My hand's not open, not to have throttle. And I keep this finger just like a gun. Like, I'll never accidentally squeeze this trigger, just like I never accidentally squeeze the trigger on my gun. And it makes for things a lot safer when you're messing around with stuff. There's almost no snag points on this entire throttle. The way to hold brakes with this is what I really like about it. You grab your brake like this. So you're grabbing both your brakes the same way with your hands. They're both at the same height. When you have a bicycle brake throttle, you have to put this brake up here and usually hold it with 1 or 2 fingers, and you don't have as good of a grip. And then when you're at 0 throttle, your hand's kind of open, and you're mostly relying on the strap and your thumb to keep everything where it is, and maybe your index finger to hold the throttle in place. When you have this kind of throttle, and you fly like this brake's never gonna come out of my hand. I can win a tug of war with anybody else, with any other throttle, with this right here. So this is the way to go. I know it's a little bit bigger right here, but your hand is closed more in the 0 throttle position. And then if you're at half throttle, it's still closed all the way. Whereas other throttles, your hand's halfway open, all the way open, or all the way closed. It's just easier. And your index finger's a lot more sensitive. So if you're a gun guy, this is the way to go. So another thing that's very overlooked in this sport is protection from the ground. Our harness sits about this high off the ground when it's flying, and that gives you about 10 inches underneath your butt, between your butt and the ground. So what you need is frame underneath you, so that you know, your body can take a decent amount of impact. You don't want it to take any impact, but a lot of these frames where your butt sits on the ground or they don't have rounded skids, and when you hit the ground, you take it on the back, and that's where you break your back. This one right here has about 10 inches underneath your butt, and what that does is, you know, you have, when your paramotor's full of fuel, you got your reserves, you got everything like that, these things can weigh 65, 70 pounds. This one right here only weighs 57 right now. But when it's all loaded up with reserves and 3.5 gallons of gas, it can weigh a lot more than that. When you come in and hit the ground, that's a lot of extra weight. That right there can, for a lot of pilots, that can be 50% more than their body weight. When you add the thrust of the engine, that can be another 160, 170 pounds, because a lot of times when somebody knows they're gonna hit, they try and gas up to get out of it. If they don't get out of it, then boom, they hit the ground. And that's a lot of extra weight. When you do that, if you don't have any protection, you don't have any frame underneath your butt, it's most likely that you're gonna break something. Most likely that you're gonna break your back. And so we do this where we have it up, elevated off the ground, so when you come in and you hit the ground, all the thrust, all the weight of the frame is gonna be absorbed into this main frame. And we build this very strong. You see we have a lot of lateral supports, and that's to take that impact, to help your back survive. Another thing we do is we round these skids. We round the skids because sometimes you come in and you hit, you want that frame to skid off or slide, right? You don't want some of the other paramotor frames, they build them where they come into a point right here, or instead of having rounded edges, they have straight edges. And this right here is a lot more expensive to produce, which is why we do it. We do it for the safety part of it. And the last time I hit the ground, I actually came in, skipped off, and I was able to keep flying. Had I had a different frame where this had a point at the end, where it came to an edge, I would have hit and it would have kind of catapulted me on my face and I would have gotten hurt. So having back protection, having a little bit of crumple zone is a really big deal. And if you've been flying in this sport for more than a year, you have buddies, at least one, probably multiple, that have had contact with the prop and back injuries. And with these back injuries is, most people recover and they make almost a full recovery relatively quickly in a couple years. But after that, they start having recurring issues. 10 years later, you see people, guys that I used to fly with, guys that have been flying longer than me, guys that have only flying a couple years, they have a back injury and they never fully recover. And they start flying again within a couple years, but then their back starts acting up. You know, and these guys can be under 40 years old. They can have an accident when they're 30, and now they're 40, and they have a back of somebody who's 75 years old. And it really affects a lot of things. Alrighty guys, so let's talk about the weight of this thing. This one right here, as it sits, is 57 pounds. It has the Vittorazzi 185, and that's the weight with the reserve pouch and the side pouch. It has the Vittorazzi 185 plus, has the stainless steel carabiners, it has the weight shift spacers, these swing arms are stainless steel, and this is the way I fly it. Okay, I fly it with all this stuff, the heavier carabiners, it has the Helix prop. We can get this frame all the way down to 53 pounds with the lightweight harness, and if we go with an E prop and we go with aluminum carabiners, so 53 pounds would be the normal advertised weight, but this is the way I fly it. When you call me up and you want to purchase one of these things, this is what I try and get you to fly, because it weighs a little bit more, but I think that the comfort of the padding of the harness actually makes it feel lighter on your back. Plus I like the Helix prop because it's stronger. It can take more damage, it can take more wear and tear, it's going to last longer. I like stainless steel carabiners because I like to do acro, and you know, stronger is better in my opinion. Alright, so let's talk about colors. These are the 3 production colors that we offer, and I actually didn't pick any of these colors. We actually started off with a different color orange, and our customers preferred to get custom cage pieces, and they actually picked out all of these colors to the point where we just made them production colors. And like this one right here was picked to match ITV wings. Same with this mantis green over here. And then this orange was picked by another person to kind of match the color on the Vittorazzi engines. I started off with a different orange color, but once theirs came out, I'm not very good at picking colors apparently, and once they picked out their custom colors, it looked so good that we retired that color, and now we have these 3. But we also keep spare cage pieces, main frame, and outside cage pieces in case somebody wants custom color. Something special about our company is we're located in America. We're small. You can get a hold of me whenever you want. So a lot of other companies, if you have a problem, you have an issue, you have a question, you have to reach out to your dealer has to reach out to the importer has to reach out to the manufacturer. Almost all the manufacturers are overseas, and there's really not a lot of direct contact. It has to go through a nice chain of people before it gets to you. It also makes the frames more expensive. With us, you can contact me directly. I can show you exactly why we did this. I designed every inch of this guy, so I can tell you why we did things. If you want to customize things, we can do that too. And we can FaceTime, I can show you inside of the shop, I can show you why we do things, how we do things, what we can and can't change. And we've actually had a lot of input from dealers and customers that we have actually changed on our machines based on what they want. Just because they call us up, we spend hours on the phone talking about it. And if it sounds like a good idea, then I'll go ahead and try it out. And if it works, and it works better than what we originally did, then I'll actually make that production. So it's just a good thing being able to get in contact really easy with the manufacturer direct. So, but yeah, guys, here they are. Here's our colors. If you got any more questions, we're going to make a series of videos explaining in detail why we do every single thing on this frame. And yeah, if you want to order one of these, you can look at SkyTapParamotors.com, SkyLab Paramotor SIV. Go ahead and order one of these guys. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. You see our pig was playing in the paint bucket today.